On September 21st, 2014, my son Robby Poblete was shot and killed in broad daylight in Vallejo, California. He was killed by a gun that was obtained illegally. And after it was used to take his life, it was resold on the streets where it was used to commit another crime. I had this idea of creating a foundation in my son's name that would get unwanted firearms off the streets. I got a lot of really harsh statements, go grieve your son and leave our guns alone. And there was one person in particular who was very consistent in his trolling. Every time I posted something, it was like, that's not gonna work, this is a joke, I'm a proud gun owner, you're not gonna take my guns away.
I started acquiring guns. It started off with a pistol that I really fell in love with. And much like they say about tattoos, once you get one, you're gonna end up with more of them. This one is a Stag AR-15. That one is a Bulgarian AK-47. And then this one is a Sig Sauer SP-2022 9mm. I was looking at Facebook one day and I noticed that there was a gun buyback in Vallejo that Pati was holding. I made comments on her Facebook page. You could actually even say that I kind of trolled her a little bit. I thought that it was a great feel-good project, but that it was gonna do little to nothing to actually combat the gun violence. Having a firearm in a home is not only a right, but I think it's a must. You must have it.
I would enter these conversations with gun owners and people who are against what we're trying to do. And that really reminded me of how polarizing this conversation was. It didn't matter that I was a mother who had lost her child and that I was just trying to find a way to avoid other parents ending up like me. We have to be done being angry and we have to find a way to understand one another's point of view. So that's what really inspired me to reach out to Maurice.
I felt compelled to want to speak to Pati because I had essentially trolled her on Facebook. I didn't necessarily have anything in mind that I said, I'm gonna say something that's gonna be new to her that maybe she has never thought of. And the way that I saw it is, I'm gonna end up hearing something that maybe I didn't or wouldn't have ever thought of. Come on. So how do you hold it when you're not ready to shoot? See, very good. Yeah, point it down and away from anybody, right?
I went in knowing that I could very well walk away insulted, offended, all of that, but I felt like I was entering a loving home. Prior to that, when I thought about others who were threatening and trolling me, I didn't think of them as people who lived in a loving home. I thought of them as people who were harsh, not loving, who were very almost militant, because that's how they came at me. To see him surrounded by his pets and his children and his wife, it humanized him and it softened my opinion of him. So I don't think I've shown you all the gun parts that we've gotten over the years. Take a look. Wow. Yeah, and so in addition to those buckets, they're in all those bins. But take a look.
These are all the old muskets.
Yeah, so these, we separate them by material. So you see all the wood here, you'll see a lot of the metal pieces and the plastic.
A lot of gun buyback programs take guns and destroy them. The unique thing that Pati actually does is that those guns are given to artists. They completely tear them apart and they create some really beautiful structures.
Hi, Natasha.
Pati, how you been?
Nice to see you. Hi. Hi.
Hello.
Maurice here. I started off as someone who opposed what we were doing. And I actually met his wife and I asked to meet with him in person so I could understand where he was coming from and that he could understand where I was coming from. And after we had that meeting, he and his wife became one of the biggest supporters of the foundation. I'm going to give you these.
Thank you. Ma'am.
And remember, there's more than, it's really all around the room.
I would feel extremely powerful with a piece like this, even though I know it's decommissioned. I mean, it's completely sawed in pieces and it's not completely intact, but you feel it, you know? There's a certain sense of power that you get from these type of things, and that sense of power keeps me from feeling so powerless. Because as we know, the world can be beautiful, but I mean, we also know the darkness that comes from it as well. And I never liked feeling powerless. I mean, I've grown up in some neighborhoods where I would feel a lot of that, and just the sense of knowing that I can protect myself. Like, it's much harder for somebody to harm me when I have something like this.
That's so interesting that you feel power through guns. I feel powerless. When I see a gun that's intact, I feel fear and I feel powerless. I only feel power once I see the guns dismantled, because I now am changing the purpose of this material. That's when I feel the power, when they've been destroyed.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, working with these pieces is always powerful.
You're essentially transforming that power and transferring it from what used to be a deadly firearm into a piece of art.
Exactly.
And that power kind of follows that piece of art and the emotion that kind of comes out of it.
Exactly. To us, this work is all about transformation and turning a negative into a positive.
And I can't wait to see the piece of art you guys are going to create from this.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
I was really interested in why she had this cause of the gun buyback. She said, yes, they're taking a lot of these old firearms and some of them are probably not even operational. However, if one firearm that could have been stolen from a home was taken off the street and a crime was prevented because of it, then the whole buyback was worth it. And that really spoke to me because it wasn't something that I ever considered. And actually, that's when I learned about her son, Robbie.
Robbie himself was a gun owner, and he had stored his guns in the safe, and a lot of the things that Maurice talked about loving and even just his personality really reminded me of my own son. So there was a connection there, and I really believe that if my son was around, Maurice was someone that he would love to hang around with. When I told him that, he was very moved. He in turn said to me, I wish Robbie was here so that he and I could become friends. And I thought that was a real powerful moment of compassion for both of us. You've never been here before. I wanted to show you his marker.
Oh, how beautiful.
Yeah, so this is actually made of bronze. There's his gloves on top of the welding machine. He was learning how to weld, and that's a more recent picture, one of the last pictures he took before he was killed.
It's an incredibly sad story, and I think that it really, it's a difficult story to hear because I can't imagine losing my own children to gun violence. I can't imagine not having my child with me. And I think that story really spoke to me, and I think it really touched me here because she's such a great woman, and for something like that to happen to her, it was really tough to hear. Even though we may have different beliefs, it's an opportunity to be able to learn from her. You don't have to be divided just because your ideals may be divided. You're missing out on great friendships if you don't go out and talk to people from the other side, because you may have a lot more in common than social media may show.
Say hi to Anne.
I will.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. In my lifetime, I have not seen a more politically divided society than I do now. Compassion is what's lacking in all of these conversations. And I think that's what Maurice and I were able to exemplify on a very micro level. At the very core, we both loved our families. We both wanted to protect the lives of those we loved. We just saw it differently. What we symbolize really are two very polarizing sides of this issue, able to literally come to the table and have this human conversation. It's an unlikely friendship, but it's a very welcome one.